Nothing could have been better for Buffalo than delivering a dominant win in Carolina, and the energy around the team right now reflects exactly that. After back-to-back losses and a long bye week that felt more like a month, the Bills responded in the way fans were hoping for, with authority. They walked into Bank of America Stadium and flat-out handled the Panthers, sauntering out with a commanding 40-9 victory and, more importantly, some badly needed momentum. Right from kickoff, it was clear the Bills came in with a mission. The offense came alive, specifically the ground game, and the defense was flying all over the field with an intensity we hadn't seen in recent weeks. But the heart of the story, the centerpiece of this victory, was James Cook. The second-year running back didn't just have a great day. He put together a performance for the ages. 19 carries, 216 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did most of that damage in just 3 quarters. That's not just productive. That's elite. That's historic. In fact, you'd have to go all the way back to 1976 to find a Bills player with more rushing yards in a single game. If the Panthers had put up a little more of a fight and kept the game close, who knows what kind of numbers Cook could have finished with. It felt like every time he touched the ball, something explosive happened. You could see the patience, the vision, the burst. It was all on display. He was reading blocks like a veteran, shedding tackles, and making defenders miss in space. He didn't just move the chains, he took over the game. And it wasn't just about him. The offensive line was out there moving bodies. Reggie Gilliam was throwing key blocks. Tight ends were sealing the edge. Receivers were doing the dirty work in space. It was a full team commitment to establishing the run. And for the first time in a while, that identity really felt like something Buffalo could lean into. 12 rushing first downs, 245 total rushing yards, against a Panthers defense that, coming into the game, ranked top 10 in the league in expected points added per rush. A defense that had held their last 3 opponents to a combined 131 rushing yards. James Cook nearly doubled that himself. The Bills didn't just succeed on the ground. They embarrassed Carolina in the trenches. And in doing so, they gave themselves something they desperately needed, a reliable formula for offensive control. Now, while the ground game stole the show, there was still a bright spot in the air, and that was wide receiver Khalil Shakir. Shakir caught 6 of 7 targets for 88 yards and a touchdown, including a house call on the opening drive that really set the tone. It was a smart read by Josh Allen, recognizing the blitz and replacing it with the ball. Shakir sat right in the vacated space, made a man miss, and was gone. That one play alone gave the Bills a commanding 26-3 lead, and from that point forward, it never felt like the game was in question. That said, let's not pretend the passing game was without issues. Outside of Shakir's big moments, it was a pretty underwhelming effort through the air. Josh Allen finished 12 of 19 for 163 yards and a touchdown. Not awful on paper, but when you dig into the flow of the game, it lacked rhythm. This wasn't the type of high-powered passing attack we've grown accustomed to. There were moments of miscommunication, some throws that were off target, and an overall sense that the offense just wasn't quite clicking through the air. Still, the Bills scored 40 points. They converted 7 of 12 third downs. They totaled 410 yards of offense and didn't turn the ball over. When you control the clock, run the ball like that, and avoid mistakes, you're going to win a lot of games, even if the passing attack isn't at its best. The fourth quarter was essentially garbage time. Mitch Trubisky came in. Ray Davis got some touches. The objective at that point was just to run the clock out and avoid injuries. But the reality is the Bills had already made their statement well before that. The offense, for all its inconsistencies in the passing game, did more than enough, and the ground game provided a much-needed identity. Now let's flip it to the defense, because that side of the ball deserves plenty of credit too. Yes, it was Andy Dalton. Yes, the Panthers' offense has been one of the worst in the league. But that doesn't take away from what Buffalo's defense put on the field. They weren't just competent. They were disruptive. They were physical. They were fast. And they looked different. Not just in energy, but in personnel. This was a reshaped defense, featuring several new elements post-bye week. Rookie cornerback Maxwell Harrison made his NFL debut and rotated in with Tre'Davious White. And while he wasn't perfect, he had a splash moment early with a one-on-one open field tackle that saved what could have been a big gain. He didn't look out of place. That's a big win in itself. Jordan Hancock got significant time at safety with Taylor Rapp on injured reserve. Cam Lewis saw some action in deeper alignments. The Bills leaned into creative packages, using more dime, rolling safeties down, and adjusting on the fly. It wasn't just plug-and-play with backups. It was schematic adaptation. You saw up front, too. Michael Hoy returned to action and made his presence felt immediately. 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits, a forced fumble. That's production you can't ignore. And with Daquan Jones still working his way back, having guys like Hoy and Larry Ogunjobi step up is massive. The linebacker unit was also reshuffled. With Matt Milano still out and Terrell Bernard only available for emergency duty, the Bills went with Shaq Thompson and Dorian Williams, and both answered the call. Dorian made a tone-setting tackle early on the first defensive series. Shaq was active throughout, and even Joe Andre got involved when the Bills rolled out 3 backer looks. This was a team effort on defense, but more importantly, it was a functional team effort. No breakdowns, no major coverage busts, just sound physical football, and it showed in the numbers. Carolina ran the ball 28 times for just 114 yards, a respectable 4.1 yards per carry. Nothing explosive, no chunk runs, just containment and sound gap discipline. Against a Panthers rushing attack that had been one of the few bright spots on their roster, that's a win. And let's not overlook the splash plays. 7 sacks, 3 takeaways. Ed Oliver opened the game with a sack on 3rd down to kill Carolina's first drive. Greg Rousseau followed that up with a forced fumble. A.J. Epineza added an interception that nearly went the distance. Joey Bosa, Rousseau, Jordan Phillips all registering sacks. The front 4 was relentless. They didn't just get home. They collapsed the pocket repeatedly and forced Dalton into rushed throws and bad decisions. Every level of the defense contributed, and the scoreboard reflected it. Holding any NFL team to under 10 points is impressive, even a struggling one like Carolina. But doing it while integrating new faces, rotating depth players, and adjusting your scheme on the fly, that's the kind of defensive resilience that can carry a team deeper into the season. That's the kind of effort that can spark belief again in a unit that had been under scrutiny. Of course, not everything was perfect. There were some areas on both sides of the ball that still raise concerns, and we'll dig into those. But for now, the headline is simple. The Bills responded. They stepped up. They imposed their will, and they walked out of Carolina with a statement win and a 5-2 record. While the win was impressive and gave the fan base plenty to smile about, let's be honest, there were still a few glaring issues that Buffalo can't afford to overlook moving forward. The biggest concern remains the passing offense. It's been a few games now where this group just hasn't looked right. And it's not one of those situations where you can pin it on a single thing. It's a mix of factors all snowballing together. Josh Allen didn't play poorly, but the passing game simply lacked fluidity. He went 12 of 19 for just over 160 yards and threw a touchdown, but the tape tells the deeper story. There were missed throws. There were moments where he didn't recognize pressure, took sacks he didn't need to take, and left plays on the field. The connection with his receivers just wasn't there for stretches of the game. And what's most concerning is that this was against a Panthers defense ranked in the bottom quarter of the league against the pass. This was a game where Buffalo should have been able to impose their will both through the air and on the ground. And while the rushing attack delivered in a massive way, the passing game left fans frustrated once again. A lot of people are quick to blame the receiving core. And yes, it's fair to question the talent and depth in that room right now. But it's more than that. There's a lack of separation, sure, but also questionable play design in key moments and a general inconsistency in execution. It feels like this group is stuck in neutral. Even when Josh Palmer is on the field, it hasn't been enough to consistently stretch defenses. And in this one, without him, it really exposed the limitations of the current setup. The Bills need another weapon, someone who can win one-on-ones, demand attention from a defense, and open up space for everyone else. Whether that comes via trade or someone steps up internally remains to be seen, but if the passing attack continues at this pace, it's going to catch up to them. You can't count on 200-yard rushing performances every week. Let's also talk about some of the execution breakdowns. There were a few offensive drives early in the game where the Bills were moving the ball well, but couldn't finish. On their second drive, for example, they were in the red zone and had a 3rd and 1 at the Panthers' 9-yard line. A perfect opportunity to punch it in or at least keep the chains moving. Instead, an illegal formation penalty pushed them back, and a sack on the next play pushed them completely out of field goal range. You go from 3rd and 1 to 4th and 22. That's not just frustrating. That's sloppy football. It's self-inflicted wounds like that, which can swing momentum and kill otherwise promising possessions. There was another drive where the play calling became too predictable. An incomplete pass on 1st down, a short run on 2nd, and then another incomplete pass on 3rd. That's a 3-and-out when the defense had just gotten a stop and you had a chance to bury the game early. It wasn't until the defense forced a turnover and the offense got a short field that they were able to really capitalize and extend the lead. So yes, the final stat line looks strong. 40 points is nothing to dismiss, but the rhythm just wasn't there for stretches. The unit still looks like it's searching for answers through the air, and that's not where you want to be heading into a stretch of games that includes Kansas City and Miami. The lack of rhythm also puts pressure on the defense, and while they were phenomenal in this game, there are a few things that still need cleaning up. For starters, Taron Johnson didn't have his best day. It seemed like the Panthers were targeting him when they needed to move the chains, and even though Dalton missed some throws, there were moments where Johnson gave up a little too much cushion. He's a veteran, and he's had plenty of great games in the slot, but this wasn't one of them. And it's not just this week. He hasn't looked quite like himself for much of this season. Maybe it's a matter of matchups or adjusting to some of the new responsibilities in the secondary, but it's something worth monitoring moving forward. Then there's the unfortunate situation with Ed Oliver. He left the game with a biceps injury and was quickly ruled out. Not a great sign. And if you follow the medical reports and early analysis, the outlook doesn't seem too promising. That's a major blow. Oliver had been playing some of the best football of his career this season. He's the kind of interior presence that opens things up for everyone else on the line. He can rush the passer. He's stout against the run. He brings energy and disruption, and the drop-off when he's not there is noticeable. The Bills' defensive line has already been hit hard by injuries this season. Daquan Jones, T.J. Sanders. The group has been patched together more often than not. And just as they were starting to get healthier, Oliver goes down again. It's incredibly frustrating. And with the trade deadline approaching, it now feels like Buffalo may need to make a move for a defensive tackle in addition to a wide receiver. Not just for depth, but for real, impactful contributions. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. In a shocking turn of events that has sent ripples through the NFL world, whispers are growing louder that the league has quietly acknowledged what insiders are calling a grotesque error in last season's championship decision. Sources close to team executives suggest that the Buffalo Bills, long considered one of the league's most resilient squads, may finally be receiving the recognition fans and analysts alike have argued they deserved. According to murmurs circulating in locker rooms and sports media circles, the NFL is taking the unprecedented step of officially returning a major title to Buffalo, a move that could rewrite the narrative of recent seasons. While league officials remain tight-lipped, the rumor mill paints a vivid picture. Behind closed doors, discussions about video review mistakes, questionable officiating calls, and disputed game outcomes reportedly led to a thorough internal audit. The result, insiders claim, is the league quietly admitting to a championship misstep, one that denied the Bills a monumental moment in franchise history. Imagine the shockwaves if true. Not only would Buffalo fans finally get their hands on the silverware they were robbed of, but the ripple effect could extend across team legacies, player records, and even future Hall of Fame considerations. Social media is already ablaze with speculation. Bills supporters are crafting memes and countdowns, while skeptics caution that until the NFL releases a formal statement, it remains a tantalizing rumor rather than a confirmed correction. Still, the idea of the league acknowledging a glaring mistake and righting the wrong has ignited intense debate. Could this be a watershed moment in NFL history where transparency meets justice? Or is it just the latest in a long line of sports whispers that will vanish under scrutiny? For now, all eyes are on Buffalo as fans nervously anticipate confirmation of a historic vindication. If the whispers hold, the city may be about to celebrate not just a win, but a symbolic triumph over years of near misses and heartbreak, a narrative straight out of a sports drama, with the Bills finally crowned as they always should have been. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.